Clippers superstar Kawhi Leonard signed a $28 million endorsement deal with an environmental startup funded by Clippers owner Steve Ballmer, currently under federal investigation for fraud.
Sports fans are reeling after a shocking scandal rocked the NBA, and at the center of it all stands Kawhi Leonard. Reports of a staggering $28 million fraud scheme have surfaced, sparking outrage and disbelief across the league. Now, Stephen A. Smith, never one to hold back, has stepped forward to confront Kawhi directly, demanding answers and accountability. This fiery exchange is sending shockwaves through basketball circles, raising questions about trust, money, and the true cost of fame. But what really went down? The $28 million mystery that rocked the NBA. The NBA is no stranger to drama, but this time it wasn't a buzzer beater or a playoff upset that sent shockwaves through the basketball world. It was something darker, a tangled web of money, power, and silence that left fans wondering if one of the league's most mysterious stars had once again managed to get paid millions for doing almost nothing. When investigative journalist Pablo Torre dropped his bombshell report, whispers turned into roars. At the center of it all was Kawhi Leonard, the famously quiet superstar of the Los Angeles Clippers. His silence has always been his shield, but now that very silence has become the loudest sound in basketball. According to Torre's investigation, Leonard signed a secret $28 million endorsement deal with a company called Aspiration. On paper, Aspiration looked like the future of finance, a green banking firm promising to plant trees, help customers go carbon neutral, and make sustainability cool. But when the layers peeled back, the dream revealed itself as a fraud. Aspiration was not planting hope, but hiding lies, a financial scheme on the verge of collapse. The shocking part wasn't just the company's downfall, but Leonard's alleged role. The contract, signed in April 2022, raised more eyebrows than any NBA box score. It required nothing from Leonard, not a commercial, not a speech, not even a single public mention of the company. He could collect every cent of the $28 million simply by staying with the Clippers. No effort, no work, just money flowing quietly into his account. What made it even murkier was the involvement of Clippers owner Steve Ballmer, the Microsoft billionaire whose fortune swings between $50 billion and $200 billion, wasn't simply watching from afar. Reports suggest Ballmer invested $50 million of his own money into Aspiration, while also helping facilitate a $300 million partnership between the Clippers and the firm. That overlap between owner, player, and sponsor raised an obvious question. Was this just a coincidence, or a clever way of sneaking around the NBA's strict salary cap rules? The league could not afford to ignore it. Commissioner Adam Silver has long described salary cap circumvention as the cardinal sin of the NBA. Once Torre's report broke, the NBA announced a formal investigation. They hired powerhouse law firm Wachtell, Lipton, Rosen, and Katz, the same group that had handled the Donald Sterling and Robert Sarver scandals. That alone showed how seriously the league viewed these allegations. Older fans immediately thought back to the 1990s when the Minnesota Timberwolves were punished for hiding an illegal contract with Joe Smith. The team lost 5 first-round draft picks and millions in fines. Could the Clippers face something similar, or worse? If investigators conclude that the Aspiration deal was essentially a funnel to pay Leonard under the table, the league could strip the team of picks, levy massive fines, and even void Leonard's contract. But beyond the legal implications, it's the characters that make this scandal irresistible. Leonard has long been seen as an enigma, a superstar who avoids the spotlight, barely speaks, and lets his game do the talking. Yet, his career with the Clippers has been defined as much by his absence as by his performance. Since joining the team in 2019, he has earned over $241 million while missing nearly 44% of regular season games. Entire seasons, like 2021 to 2022, vanished due to injury. Add in the fact that he has sat out 15 of 50 playoff games, and critics already accuse him of being the king of getting paid for doing nothing. Against that backdrop, the idea of a $28 million endorsement deal requiring zero work sounded almost surreal. Ballmer's role only deepens the intrigue. As the wealthiest owner in professional sports, he has the resources to outmaneuver the system. Was he simply another investor fooled by Aspiration's promises of sustainability, or did he help structure a loophole to secure his star? The timing of his investment and the Clippers' partnership with the company certainly raises eyebrows. Then comes Joe Sandberg, Aspiration's co-founder, who has already pleaded guilty to wire fraud. He admitted to defrauding investors and lenders out of more than $248 million. With the FBI, SEC, and Department of Justice circling, Aspiration's collapse was inevitable. But the question now is how many reputations it will bring down with it. And let's not forget Dennis Robertson, better known to fans as Uncle Dennis. Leonard's advisor has a history of unusual demands. Back in 2019, during Kawhi's free agency, Robertson reportedly asked teams for private planes, ownership stakes, and guaranteed endorsement money. The Lakers famously rejected those requests as illegal. Could the Aspiration deal be the latest in a string of eyebrow-raising arrangements that somehow slipped through the cracks? Fans are divided. Some argue Leonard was just cashing in on an opportunity offered to him. It's not his job to investigate the legitimacy of a company. Others see it differently. A superstar already criticized for missing games, quietly pocketing millions off the court with no effort required. To them, this wasn't bad luck. It was the final straw in a career built on maximum money for minimum work. Yet, here's the twist. No one has proven Leonard himself did anything illegal. He signed a contract. The company agreed to the terms. So far, the fraud charges target Aspiration's leadership, not Leonard. Which leaves the lingering question, did Kawhi knowingly benefit from a fraudulent setup, or was he simply in the wrong place at the right time? The NBA's investigation will eventually provide answers, but in the meantime, speculation is only growing louder. Would the league dare strip the Clippers of their superstar if wrongdoing is proven? Could Leonard's carefully cultivated reputation survive such a blow? Or will this scandal fade like others before it, leaving behind more questions than answers? One thing is undeniable. The $28 million mystery has become one of the most talked about sagas in recent NBA history. A superstar who built his career on silence now finds himself at the center of a scandal where silence may no longer be enough. But what shocking truth hides behind Kawhi Leonard's $28 million controversy? Stay glued to your screen to find out. Kawhi Leonard's $28 million controversy uncovered. When the story of Kawhi Leonard's secret $28 million endorsement deal first surfaced, the sports world didn't just whisper, it exploded. Fans, media personalities, and even fellow NBA figures were left gasping at the sheer audacity of the allegations. Was one of the league's quietest stars really caught up in such a bold scheme? And how did something this massive remain hidden until investigative reporters dragged it into the light? As soon as the news broke, ESPN's Stephen A. Smith practically set the stage on fire. Never one to hold back, he turned his platform into a courtroom, putting Kawhi's career, character, and work ethic on trial. "The worst superstar I've ever seen," he thundered, pointing not only to the scandal itself, but to what he viewed as years of questionable commitment. To him, this wasn't just about money. It was about a player who had built a reputation for doing less while collecting more. And Smith wasn't simply ranting for ratings. He dug deeper, connecting the scandal to a broader pattern. Leonard's history of load management, his long absences due to injuries, and his limited appearances since joining the Clippers. According to Smith, this new deal only painted the same picture on a bigger canvas. Millions of dollars for games missed. Millions more for an endorsement no one even knew about. It looked to Smith like a man getting rich by staying silent. But Stephen A. wasn't the only one fueling the fire. Pablo Torre, the journalist who first uncovered the deal, quickly stepped into the spotlight. His reporting wasn't built on whispers or gossip. It came from solid evidence: bankruptcy filings, insider testimonies, and financial documents. On The Rich Eisen Show, Torre explained that endorsement deals are usually designed to be visible. A brand ambassador is meant to be seen promoting the product. That was what made this arrangement so unusual. It wasn't just hidden, it was buried. Naturally, fans took the story and ran wild. Social media turned into a storm of memes, hot takes, and conspiracy theories. Some questioned whether Leonard had known from the beginning and played the system flawlessly, while others believed he was caught in a web far bigger than himself. Within days, Torre's podcast investigation had millions of downloads, proving just how eager people were for every twist of this scandal. Then came the other major players. Steve Ballmer, the energetic and famously wealthy Clippers owner, suddenly found himself tied directly to the controversy. Was he complicit, careless, or simply conned? Ballmer tried to defend himself, claiming he had no knowledge of Leonard's secret deal. In one interview, he even insisted he had been scammed by Aspiration's founders, the company at the center of it all. But critics weren't convinced. How could a man as meticulous and business-savvy as Ballmer, worth billions, fall for something so sloppy? Mark Cuban, never shy about weighing in, came to Ballmer's defense. To Cubans, even the sharpest minds can be fooled by scammers. He suggested this wasn't corruption, but deception, pointing to Ballmer's multi-million-dollar sponsorship with Aspiration in 2021 as nothing more than routine business. Leonard's personal deal, Cuban argued, may have slipped past unnoticed. Still, skeptics couldn't help but wonder, at what point does being duped stop sounding believable for someone considered one of the smartest investors of his generation? Bill Simmons was among those unconvinced. He pointed to Ballmer's obsessive planning of the Intuit Dome, every detail checked, every dollar tracked. For a man like that, Simmons argued, stumbling blindly into a shady side deal just didn't fit. Was this really a blunder or something intentional? Meanwhile, Torre pushed even harder. He challenged the idea that Ballmer was a victim at all. According to testimonies from former Aspiration employees, Leonard's deal wasn't a random accident. It was structured to work around NBA salary cap rules. If true, this wasn't only a financial scandal. It was a direct threat to the fairness of the league. And that's the league's nightmare. If the Clippers could do it, what's stopping other franchises from pulling the same stunt? Analysts pointed to the infamous Joe Smith case in the late 90s, when the Timberwolves were hit with fines and stripped of multiple draft picks for illegal contracts. If the NBA concluded the Clippers had crossed the line, punishments could be just as severe, or even worse. Outside the US, international media latched onto the story as well. Outlets in Europe and Asia framed it as a clear example of how money and power bend the rules in American sports. Headlines painted the scandal as proof that the NBA's financial system isn't as ironclad as it seems. The fact that it went global so quickly showed how deeply the league's brand and its controversies resonate around the world. For Leonard, the fallout couldn't come at a worse time. His reputation was already fragile in some circles. His messy exit from the San Antonio Spurs left a sour taste. His free agency decisions were filled with demands, and his frequent absences due to load management sparked endless debates about commitment. This scandal, whether he was an active participant or just caught in the storm, only fueled the perception that he places personal gain over team loyalty. The reaction across the basketball world revealed something deeper: division. Some figures rushed to defend Leonard and Ballmer, casting them as victims of a slick scam. Others leaned into the chaos, framing the ordeal as evidence of corruption lurking within the league itself. In many ways, the scandal became less about facts and more about perspective, the story people wanted to believe. At its heart, this was never just a basketball story. It was a tale of money, power, and perception colliding on one of the sport's biggest stages. It forced fans to ask uncomfortable questions. How much do we really know about what happens behind the curtain? How far are teams and players willing to go to secure a financial advantage? And most importantly, how fragile is the idea of fair play when billions of dollars are at stake? Stephen A. Smith may have shouted the loudest, but his frustration touched on a feeling shared by many. Fans want transparency, effort, and fairness. And whether Leonard was guilty of scheming or simply guilty of silence, the optics of a $28 million hidden deal were impossible to ignore. So where does the NBA go from here? Will the league crack down on the Clippers with punishments that echo through history? Or will this all fade away, chalked up as just another messy chapter in the unpredictable world of professional basketball? For now, the scandal remains a storm cloud over Leonard's legacy, and a reminder that in the NBA, drama off the court can be just as explosive as the game itself. But what secrets will the NBA investigation reveal after Stephen A. Smith confronts Kawhi Leonard? Stay with us to find out. Stephen A. Smith confronts Kawhi Leonard over fraud allegations. The NBA has always been a magnet for drama. From referee betting scandals to owners disgraced by racism, the league has faced storms before. But the mess swirling around Kawhi Leonard and the alleged $28 million fraud scheme feels different. This isn't just about poor judgment or bad behavior. It cuts deeper, striking at the very heart of the league's credibility. And at the center of this storm, a silent superstar who refuses to speak, and a furious Stephen A. Smith demanding answers. Picture this: Los Angeles, late summer, a quiet workout away from cameras. Kawhi Leonard is there, working on his signature mid-range game, robotic as always, almost mechanical in his focus. Out of nowhere, Stephen A. Smith, never one to hold his tongue, walks in with fire in his eyes. Eyewitnesses claim he marched straight to Kawhi, wasting no time on pleasantries. "You took money you weren't supposed to take. You know that, right?" The words cut the air like a knife. Kawhi? Silent. Not a blink, not a word. Just that unreadable stare he's known for. Stephen A. pushed harder. Did Kawhi know the money was fraudulent? Was he aware that funds might have been funneled improperly from Steve Ballmer through Aspiration? Again, no response. That silence, which once made Kawhi seem cool and untouchable, suddenly felt heavy, guilty even. And this is where things get sticky. Because in the middle of a financial scandal this big, silence doesn't come across as calm. It feels like complicity. Kawhi's refusal to explain himself has only fueled speculation, and that's dangerous when $28 million is in question. By September 6th, the NBA had already confirmed they'd brought in Wachtell, Lipton, Rosen, and Katz, the same powerful law firm that investigated Donald Sterling in 2014 and Robert Sarver in 2022. Those probes ended in career-shattering penalties. This time, they're digging into the Clippers' relationship with Aspiration, and whispers are already floating around about serious consequences. Could Kawhi's massive $153 million extension be voided if investigators find proof he knowingly accepted fraudulent money? Imagine that. The face of the Clippers stripped of his contract and reputation in one swoop. For years, Kawhi built a unique brand, the quiet superstar. No endorsements, no flashy lifestyle, no endless sound bites. Fans loved him because he seemed pure, detached from drama, a man who drove the same old car for years and kept his head down. But now, that very image has crumbled. Instead of the humble star who didn't care about money, people are beginning to wonder if he was cashing dirty checks behind the curtain. And let's not forget the irony. Kawhi spent his entire career avoiding the spotlight. Now, the spotlight is hunting him, brighter and harsher than ever before. Meanwhile, Stephen A. Smith has stepped into a role few expected: whistleblower, watchdog, and the conscience of the NBA. Known for his booming voice and no-nonsense commentary, Stephen A. has spent years holding players and owners accountable on TV. But this wasn't about a debate segment. This was personal. For 2 decades, Stephen A. has dissected every contract, every move, every controversy in the NBA. He's criticized stars, defended others, but he's never been accused of crossing the line himself. That's why, in his mind, fraud is where the NBA's honor collapses, and why he couldn't stay silent. Think about what's at stake here. If Kawhi really benefited from funneled money, what stops other billionaire owners from pulling the same trick? What's to stop a team from secretly handing players extra millions through side businesses, tech startups, or shell companies? If that loophole exists, the entire salary cap system, the backbone of competitive balance, becomes a joke. And if fans stop believing in fair play, the NBA risks turning into pro wrestling, scripted, rigged, and fake. That's why Adam Silver is under immense pressure. If this investigation confirms wrongdoing, the league will have to make an example out of Kawhi and the Clippers, just like they did with Sterling and Sarver. Anything less could shatter trust forever. And what about Kawhi's legacy? If he walks away cleared, maybe this scandal becomes a footnote, an embarrassing chapter. But if proof surfaces that he, or even Uncle Dennis, knew what was happening, the fallout would be brutal. Fines, suspensions, a torn-up contract, and perhaps most damaging of all, the permanent stain on his reputation. For a man who built his myth on being untouchable and above the noise, there's nothing worse than being remembered as the face of the NBA's dirtiest financial scandal. Stephen A.'s confrontation may go down as one of the defining moments of this saga. A commentator, not a player, standing eye to eye with Kawhi and demanding the truth. It wasn't just about Kawhi, it was about the NBA itself. Integrity, fairness, and the very idea of competition were on trial in that silent room. The scandal isn't over. Lawsuits continue, investigations dig deeper, and Adam Silver's next move could reshape the league for years. But one thing is clear. This isn't just Kawhi Leonard's problem anymore. It's the NBA's credibility on the line. And maybe, just maybe, history will remember that confrontation more than the fraud itself. The day Stephen A. Smith looked into Kawhi Leonard's silence and asked the question every fan wanted answered. Because in the end, this isn't only a story about money, it's about trust. And once trust is gone, no superstar silence can ever bring it back. So, what do you think really happened when Stephen A. Smith confronted Kawhi Leonard over that $28 million fraud scheme? We'd like to hear your thoughts. Don't forget to like and subscribe.